Drunkish. It's me, your host, Stephanie Wilder Taylor, and I'm here with my guest, Greg Fitzsimmons. He is a comedian, he's a podcaster, Fitzdog Radio. I'm going to say it's a radio show. I don't care. I'm going to say that. Uh, what else? What else? He's a touring comedian. He's very busy. How are you?
Thank you. Well, first of all, are we on video or is this just audio?
I might use a clip,
Okay, great. Oh yeah, that's right. You
or
told me.
I won't. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'll
We
try.
don't
I
know what
just
we're
want to
gonna
know
do.
whether to smile. Do I have to smile for the next hour? Do I have to worry about, my dog jumping on my lap? I mean, I want this to be professional. I got my South African rugby hat on.
Oh, I like it.
We were just over there for 3 weeks, the whole family for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was fun. And that was speaking of sobriety, that was like I was with 20 people, my wife's side of the family, and everybody is pounding drinks and you can't escape, you know? It's like you're staying in the house with everybody. And so, you go like and I find that non-alcoholic beer really helps me at times like that.
That's interesting that you would say that. I have never had a non-alcoholic beer since I got sober, and not for any kind of reasons. Like I feel like I just because I my thing. What's the point? I'm always like I didn't drink beer for the taste, but that's just me. So
Well, ask your dog who's been neutered why he's dry humping your leg. It just feels familiar. It's comforting.
right, right.
Yeah.
I would just be waiting for the buzz to kick in.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, people in the program will tell you that you shouldn't have non-alcoholic beers, that it's a gateway. But I'm fine with that.
Well, people in the program will tell you like, don't do meth, but what do they know? They don't know anything.
I know they're so strict. It's like, Jesus, can I live a little bit here? Um, no, and I should say also, I have on occasion smoked pot over the
Mhm.
years, and I do take mushrooms sometimes, but it's very purposeful. It's not, I always think about it as like, am I running from something or am I going towards something with a substance? And I feel like with mushrooms, I sit down, I meditate, I journal, I come up with a goal. I do it with people I love in nature. And then I usually come out of it with like a couple of good epiphanies. And I have my depression lifts for like a week. So, I never refer to myself as sober, but
Okay.
I haven't had a drink in 35 years except for one night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a long time.
Yeah. Right.
That is
It
a
is.
long time. I think that there are a lot of ways to, well, I don't want to say a lot of ways to be sober. Maybe there aren't a lot of ways to be sober. I think there are a lot of ways to do recovery, and I am interested in hearing about all the ways. I I have thought about the idea of, ayahuasca, or I never did mushrooms and I never did acid before I got sober. So it wasn't something I was looking to do then, and it's definitely not something I'm looking to do now, for
Yeah.
all kinds of reasons. I would be the person who would, take LSD and never be normal again. I just know it.
Yeah.
I
I
was
know
not even a
people
good
like
pot
that.
smoker. I don't know what, first of all, okay, just full disclosure about me. I think if I was to be doing anything, it would be pain pills. That would be my favorite thing. If I could, I'm saying if I could do something, it would be
Oh, let me tell you something. Opiates feel real nice. I mean, there's a reason why so many people get addicted to them. They go in
right.
there. I feel like when I've taken them, and I had a little run in with those. I had shoulder surgery and I got overprescribed for about 4 or 5 months. And I realized at the end wasn't taking them for pain anymore. And getting off them was actually, even though I wasn't taking that many, it's what happens is your what's the drug in the chemical that makes you feel good in your body?
Your serotonin,
Yes, the
yeah, yeah,
serotonin receptors in your brain get
dopamine,
clogged up by, yeah,
dopamine.
dopamine receptors.
Yeah.
So dopamine receptors get clogged up by opiates, and so when you go off of them, you don't feel anything good for however long it takes. For me, it was about a day and a half. And you go into a very dark, dark place. And but when you're on them, I would feel no fear, no social anxiety. I just felt at peace. I could talk to anybody without wanting to. Usually, I talk to somebody I don't like, and I'm just all I'm doing is trying to figure out how to get out of the conversation, And I just found myself at Christmas being able to talk to like, that crazy MAGA cousin or whatever, and just being like, all right, I'm good, you know?
Right, right. Yeah. I I always was surprised at the same exact reaction that I had with pain pills. It was like it didn't totally alter me. And at a point before I got sober, when I was taking but what I would get a prescription for them for breakthrough migraine pain, and then I would just
Oh,
continue. I remember one time getting a prescription for 100 from my doctor and taking them all in a week. And honestly, nobody was the wiser
really?
because I can act. I don't act like Anna Nicole Smith. I'm not like
Yeah.
falling over or,
Yeah.
hey, what's go? I'm like, I think I could talk pretty normally, but it makes
Uh-huh.
me in my brain feel so much better. Like, wow, people are not as annoying as they
Oh my
were
God.
not
Oh
on
my
pain
God.
pills.
I mean,
I have the
we're
face
not
problem.
your
You
face
know,
problem.
I have the problem where I want to get out of the conversation. I got to make my face not look like I want to get out of the conversation,
Right,
you know?
right, right. Yeah. No, I think somebody should write a book about that. How to get out of, especially when you're at a party and in the corner, you see two people you haven't seen in years that you love and you want to get to them. But there's landmines through the party. And as you walk, it's always like some guy that walks up to me who's like, "Hey, man." And I'll look at him and he'll be like, "You don't remember me." And I'll go like, "Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I don't have a good memory." I did a guest spot on your show in Cleveland like 9 years ago. It's like, hey, you know what? Fuck you. Don't come at me with that. You don't remember me. Don't gaslight me, you son of a bitch. If I don't remember you, there's one reason you were not memorable. You did not make an impression. You're boring and dull. And I haven't said it that strongly, but I've
Mhm.
said something to that extent to me. I don't put up with passive aggression anymore. I can't do it. I'm too old for that.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Cheers. I'll drink to that now.
Cheers.
Tell me about
Right, right.
can you tell me about the first time you drank? I feel like everybody that's developed a problem with alcohol has a story about like the very first time.
Well, my family, I'm Irish Catholic, and it really is. I mean, it's a disease of the Irish for sure. I mean, just based on my own family, so many of my relatives were in recovery or actively drinking their whole lives. My father was an alcoholic. My uncle was a bad alcoholic. He was Skid Row. He lived in the Bowery in New York in a welfare
Wow.
motel.
When
And
you were so this is your dad's brother,
yeah,
I'm assuming?
my whole life he lived like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and
And
then
what
my
did your
dad,
dad say about that?
he took care of him, he took care of his brother, and there's only so much he could do. He had the disease, and then my father was an alcoholic as well, but he was high functioning, but he died at 53. You know,
Oh, wow.
he smoked 3.5 packs a day, and he drank a ton, and so anyway, so family get-togethers, like all the holidays, there was always a lot of alcohol around, and me and my cousins would take like half empty drinks, half empty glasses of wine, and we'd take them down to the basement and my grandfather's house in the Bronx, and we would drink them. And that was the first time I got buzzed, was with my cousins. And my one cousin, so I was probably about 13 or something. And then my younger cousin Danny, he was only like 11. And so he was trying to keep up with us, and he went into my grandparents' bedroom, and it was winter, it was Christmas, so everybody had their coats on the bed, and he vomited all over everybody's coats, like
Oh
red
no.
wine vomit. Yeah.
Did you
And
get
that
blamed
was,
for it?
no, we fucking sold him out. It was Danny. Danny did it. It was pretty obvious. He was a mess.
Hmm. So then what happened? Where did it go from there?
Well, and then when I was a teenager, like when I was probably like, yeah, it was in like seventh grade. So I was, 12, 13 years old. And I ran with a bunch of crazy kids. Everybody had older brothers. Everybody had parents that were checked out. Like I look back on it and I realized like most of my friends' parents were alcoholics or drug addicts, and they just were not paying attention. And so we didn't have curfews, and we had access to older siblings' pot, and they would buy drinks for us. They buy beer for us. We would get mescaline and mushrooms and acid when we were like really like 13, 14 years old. And so I can remember like being behind the bleachers at a high school football game, and we found a six pack. Somebody had like left it back there, and I remember drinking like I remember drinking like a slug of it, and my whole body got warm and it tingled, and it made me feel like, oh, I like this. Like I almost had a feeling like this is going to be a big part of my life, you know? And I just always I just love drinking, you know, which is I think I had undiagnosed social anxiety. I'm a comedian, so nobody thinks I have it, but it's really when I do comedy or a podcast, like I get up for it, like I'm ready for it and I do it. But when I'm not ready for it, uh, it's very overwhelming to me. And I think drinking took the edge off. It made me funnier, less inhibited, more emotional. And so it was kind of a perfect fit until it wasn't.
And how did that go? I mean, did you have any consequences of your drinking in high school, or was it just all fun? Because my experience in high school was that all of my friends drank the way I drank, but I couldn't understand why I seemed to get the drunkest or why I had horrible hangovers and why everybody else was like fine the next day and I was throwing
Right.
up the entire next day. And it was kind of an internal battle of why does it affect me this way? It never
Right.
occurred to me like, oh, I shouldn't be drinking. I'm an alcoholic because
Right.
I didn't see it in any of my family. Jewish family, very controlled people
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Right.
And so I felt I was definitely already the odd one out. So I was doing a lot of
Right.
hiding but all my friends drank.
Yeah, I think when all your friends are drinking, especially like at the time when we grew up, like you're a little younger than me, but like it was a time where alcoholism wasn't discussed as a disease. It was just like kind of a it was just like you said, the context of it was everybody's drinking, so who's going to think that they alone have a problem?
Right.
And so I didn't know what alcoholism was till I was in college. And then I started going to Al-Anon meetings when I realized, you know, how bad my father's drinking was and how it affected me. And then that led me to quit drinking myself. But yeah, I got arrested a lot. I spent 3 different weekends in jail for fighting in bars. And
Wow.
I got a lot of JD cards as a kid for vandalism and breaking into a car and um, just a lot of drunken behavior. And I got into a lot of fights. That was my thing. I would lose my temper, and I was not a big guy, so it didn't always end well. And but I think the time that when I finally quit I wanted to quit all you know all through college. I knew I had a problem. And like you said, like I was the one with the bigger hangover. I was the one that was throwing up and making a scene and getting us all kicked out of a bar. But it wasn't until I started doing stand-up comedy, which was in college. And when I graduated college, I really was going at it full on. It was all I was doing. And I got drunk on stage one night and I bombed and I got off stage and I felt like such a loser. And I was so ashamed because I had been mediocre my whole life. I was a bad student. I played sports, but I was never a great athlete. I was not great with girls. And then stand up, I felt like, wow, I'm really good at this. Like I think this is something that I can pursue, you know? And then when I found my drinking was interfering with that, I felt like, oh, well, that's not going to happen. Like I kind of had what they call a shallow bottom. Like I didn't, you know, I did total a car drunk, but I never, you know, and I never, like things didn't get that bad for me to want to quit. I didn't want to end up like my dad, pretty much.
I think it's interesting that, we're all so obsessed. I'll speak for myself. I was very obsessed when I stopped drinking with how high my bottom was. I'm so
Uh,
functional. For
right,
me, I drove drunk with my kids in the car. And
Oh,
but nothing happened. I came
mm,
home, I pulled into my driveway. I didn't think I was drunk because that was my thing, was just I never thought I was drunk. So if anybody was
yeah.
like, "Are you okay? Are you okay to drive?" I'd be like,
Mm,
"Yeah,
yeah.
obviously, or why would I be driving?"
Right, right.
I always felt fine the night
Uh-huh.
of. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until the next day, and this was the same case for me. The next day I woke up with a brutal hangover, and my husband had accused me of being drunk the night before.
Uh,
And when I woke up knowing that he'd been right, even though in the moment I'd been defensive about it, I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
oh, and I quit drinking. That was the last time I drank.
How long ago was that?
That was almost 16 years ago. I was
Damn.
but I was 42. I'd done a lot of drinking in my day. So, but my point is, I really thought of myself as very functioning, very high bottom for a long
Yeah,
time. I was
right.
like, but my life was fine. I was very functional. But it's funny when you think about it and to hear you say shallow bottom, but I totaled a car. But like you
Yeah,
could have killed somebody
right,
totaling a car drunk,
right.
right?
I know, I
Then
know.
would you have said, oh, I had a really high bottom?
Right.
No, then you would have been like, fuck, like this is what happened. But it's interesting because I feel like that's our brains trying to go, it wasn't that bad. Like
Right.
we're doing hero shit by being sober when like it probably wasn't that bad. You didn't get like 10 years in jail, but
Hmm.
you were arrested. I guess what I'm saying is you still did the right thing. I think we did the right thing.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, it's not about
Probably wasn't going
it's
in a good
not
direction, right?
right. Well, that's what it was. I mean, I really think that I don't know where I got it from, but I was always, as a kid, as a teenager, I was in deep in my base, in my core, and it probably came from my parents. I had this vision that I was going to have a special life to achieve things, and I wasn't going to be level manager type of a novelist. I spent most of my childhood an English
You're kind of
major.
breaking up a little bit. How's your connection?
Oh, okay. Let me see. Full bars, but
Like you're frozen right now to me.
oh, you let the connection's better. You can edit this out, right?
Yeah, I'll totally edit this out. Yeah,
Okay.
don't worry about it.
All right. How's this?
Better.
Okay. I'm sitting outside now. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
perfect.
Um,
Okay, so you were
um,
saying, I'm going to bring you back in. You were saying you always felt like you'd have a special life. So start with that.
yeah. It was like I was with the craziest kids, but I was the least crazy of the crazy kids. I got caught less. I think I had much more awareness of not failing, like, and I did fail on some degrees. Like I did really bad in school, but I managed to get into college, and I took a year off after high school and I backpacked around Europe by myself. And I did a lot of things that really pushed the boundaries of what a kid would normally do at my age. And I did stand up in high school a little bit. And I wrote a novel when I was about 18 years old. And there was something inside of me that drove me to want to have a special life. And I think that drinking was becoming a cycle of failure for me. It was like waking up with the hangovers, wasting a day, ruining a relationship with somebody. Um, I don't know that I ever lost a job from drinking necessarily, but it felt like when it affected stand-up comedy, that was when I said, well, I just can't have this. I can't. I saw my dad's isolation and sadness and shame from drinking. And I thought that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to end up being. And so I think I had the presence in that moment to, and I'm not a program guy. Like I did go to Al-Anon, I did go to AA for a while, but I wish I had the grace of somebody that really worked the steps and the piece of it, and the, and I think for me it's a little bit more white knuckled. It was a little bit more like, you tough it out, just turn off the switch, don't do it. And I think that that's made me a little more of a wound up person in life than I would be if I had. I mean, the steps are incredible. It's just like, it's like every Eastern philosophy and all mixed up into one about letting go and higher powers and stuff that can really free you in your life, and make your motivation in life more aspirational and less fear based.
But you don't want to do that. You don't want to do it though.
I know. Why did I do it?
Do you feel
What's
like it's
wrong with
do you
me?
because do you feel like, well, first of all, I think you're a comedian and we're all a
Yeah.
bit rebellious, right? And do you feel like there's something about program that's all or nothing, that's like you got to do it this way, you have to have a sponsor, you have to do work, and you're not interested?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I feel like I like to live life on my own terms, and you're right. It's a lot of turning over your cognitive process to an outside paradigm, and I don't know that I'd fit into that. Al-Anon was such a good fit. The first time I went to an Al-Anon meeting, I sat down, somebody brought me, and a woman got up, and she was a, you know, older woman. I was, you know, 21. She was probably 60, and she was overweight, and she was into arts and crafts, and she spoke about alcoholism with her parents, and I started bawling. It like, it made me feel like I could understand so many of my bad feelings about myself, and that it was universal, and that I was in a place where you could be safe to talk about these things. And I just went all the time. I used to go to 3 meetings a week for years. And so I really was exposed to the steps, and they're the exact same 12 steps as for, whether it's Narcotics Anonymous or, Overeaters or not, like it's all the same 12 steps. And I went to a lot of therapy. I sort of feel like I use therapy to get sober more so than the program.
I want to hear more about that because I feel like for myself, I've been to a lot of therapy as well, but I always found that therapists do a lot of gassing you up and, it's not your fault and all that. And for
Yeah,
me, the difference with the program was, oh, it's so interesting that I do have a part in things. And a lot of the ways that I behave are not conducive to like good relationships with people. And
right,
a
right.
lot of, and I'm just speaking for myself, I do not like to be criticized. I don't like constructive criticism, even. I don't like to be
Uh-huh.
told if there's any room for improvement. If I could
Yeah.
have my way, it would be all validation all the time. And obviously,
Mhm.
that's not the real world. But when you go to therapy, I feel like my therapist would always be like, "You're absolutely right. You were
Mhm.
traumatized." This, and in the program, people would say, "Okay, yeah, that sounds hard, but like, what could you have done different, or was your ego involved in this?" And the
Mhm.
first time a person who cared for me and was a nice person and wasn't, a boss trying to talk to me, told me about some of my character problems. Uh, was really eye-opening and great. I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you mean I could change the way I behave and feel better, and I don't have to
Yeah.
always figure out a way to deflect?" So I
Right.
want to hear, but I would love to hear about how therapy helped you in that way.
Yeah, I think probably my first therapist was much more that. I think he was supportive would be a nice way to say it, but not very confrontational. And I think for me, it was just the ability to talk, coming from a family where we just didn't talk about emotions. We didn't acknowledge my father's drinking. We were, there was physical abuse in the house. And so I talked about this stuff for the first, and the therapist would be like he couldn't believe some of the stuff I was telling him. Like he just was like, Greg, this is serious. Like these are things that you need to deal with. And so I think that that's what I needed at that stage. And then later on, I found therapists that were more into cognitive behavioral therapy, which was just more about um, checking your thoughts and challenging the reality of your thoughts and not accepting that your thoughts are the truth. And so that really worked for me because that was something you could pull out a pen and paper. And there's a book that has a list of there's 12 different cognitive distortions, and you can check your thoughts against each one of those, and it allows you to step back and go like, oh yeah, this is clouded thinking, but I think you're right. I think the program is much more about taking your inventory, making amends, doing things that put the onus on you. And I think that some people talk about the Catholic or Christianity, or I think specifically Catholicism with AA, and how there's that kind of shame and guilt that's wrapped into it a little bit more, like the religion is, and that some people have a hard time with that because
Yeah.
that's how they experience it.
I mean, my beginnings with the program with 12 steps, it was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow, and I felt really uncomfortable hearing. I grew up, my mother was a atheist. I would ask her about God and she would just say there's no such thing, and
Yeah,
kind of felt embarrassed to even want to believe in something bigger than ourselves. And I would say like, well, how did this all get created? And she'd say
yeah,
it's just science, whatever. Big Bang
yeah,
Theory, and that was it. She did not want to engage in any conversation. The whole thing was silly to her. And
right.
I had a lot of trouble going to meetings where people were like, well, just give it over to God. I was like,
Uh-huh.
well, if there isn't a God, then that's kind of silly to just
So
give it over to God.
what did God become to you? What did you have to create?
Well, I had a similar experience to you where I just really liked meetings because for the very first time ever, I was hearing people say thoughts that I'd had in my head that I always thought I'm the only person who thinks this way. I'm the
Mhm.
only person who's engaging in this behavior that I can't stop doing, that I rationalize, that is dark, and I feel awful about myself. I mean, the first time I talked about driving drunk with my kids in the car, somebody came up and they were like, "Oh, honey, we've all done it." You know, I did
Yeah,
worse. I
right.
had somebody tell me I breastfed drunk and had to take my baby to the hospital. It was
No.
hearing that kind of thing from a
Wow.
really normal looking
Uh-huh.
person
Right,
that made
right,
me go, "Oh, this is this is here." It was
right,
very, very comforting, and it gave me a lot of hope. And they say in this program, take what you need and leave the rest.
right.
And all you need is a desire to stop drinking. So for
Yeah.
me, I was like, well, I want to stop drinking. And I always wanted to not drink more than I wanted to drink, a little,
Hmm.
even if it was just a little bit. So I
Yeah.
was willing to go like, okay, there's a lot of things about this that suck and are ridiculous and I don't agree with,
Yeah.
but I don't have to do any of them.
Right, right.
That's
No,
the thing.
if you could take 70% out of it, you've gotten a lot of really like deconstructing your life and having the seeing the universality of it and understanding it's not just you. That's so powerful. That weight that comes up. So wait, you didn't tell me about your higher power then.
So for me, it was connection to me. It was like, oh, sometimes I feel it and sometimes I don't. It wasn't really a higher power that I could define. It was the
Right.
group. It was
Oh, I see.
honestly kind of, this sounds so corny and you can tell that I'm not this person, but it was kind of love. It was like, oh, in this group, they don't want your money. They don't want anything for you from you. They just want to help you. And I found such a power in that, and I just embraced it. And I was like, that's my higher power, is being able to just because I was suffering at the beginning. I hear a lot of people, they quit drinking, and I want to hear how it was for you. But a lot of people quit drinking and they're like, I feel great, no
Yeah, yeah.
desire. It's been lifted. And I
Right.
was like, fuck that. I want to
Mm,
drink every single night. put the kids to bed. All I want to do is like have 4 glasses of wine and
Mhm.
shut off the noise in my head. And when that was taken away from me, it was really hard. And what helped
Yeah,
me was calling people and having somebody go, I totally get it. It's going to be
right.
okay.
Right. And also, I think it is difficult. I mean, for some people, like for me, my instinct, my default setting when I feel like that is to go inward and to disconnect, and that changing that dynamic to where you actually pick up the phone and engage in a conversation you don't want to have, like, because you do feel like nobody's going to get how I feel right now and I'm not in a mindset to share. I don't want to do it too much energy. But when you can change that and realize that every time you do it, you feel better. There's never a time where you reach out and you have a conversation that you don't walk away from it going like, wow, I all my problems are a lot smaller than they were before I picked up the phone.
So let me ask you this. You quit drinking. You did it a little bit with the program at the beginning,
Yeah. And a
and then
lot
you
with the literature.
okay.
I yeah, I read the one day at a time book every day, and that always helped me. It always seemed to be a thought that I needed at that time, and that was very helpful. But yeah, I think it was a lot of therapy,
But
and
you must have felt like at some point you weren't white knuckling it anymore, that you just got used to not drinking.
no, I wanted to have a drink last night. Everybody in my family was drinking bottles of wine. We had people over, and no, it never went away. I still feel it.
So when the night you told me that besides one night when you drank, what was that like?
What was the one night like?
Yeah,
Well, it was a very dear friend of mine. Do you remember Kevin Meaney, the comedian
of
Kevin Meaney?
course, of
Yeah.
course.
So Kevin was one of my dearest friends. We grew up next to each other, and he was like a ment. He was about 10 years older, and he was a real mentor to me. And then he became like one of my closest friends. And so, and I went through everything in his life with him. He married my next door neighbor, who was my babysitter, and I was
Wow.
in his wedding party. He was in my wedding party. He talked to me about how to tell his wife that he was coming out of the closet, and I helped walk him through that before he did it, and then in the aftermath. And his daughter is my goddaughter, and so he died, and I gave the eulogy at the funeral, and then it was all these comedians and family, very Irish, and everybody was getting bombed. And I stayed at my sister's house in New York, and they had me staying in the bonus room, which has a bar in it. And I just went over and I got a bottle of Chivas off the shelf, and I had like 3 big swigs of Chivas, and I got buzzed, and then I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day and I was like, what? Like I couldn't even understand how it happened. It wasn't even like I battled with should I, shouldn't I? I just picked it up and started drinking. It just felt like normal. And I never did again. I woke up and I was like a little hungover. I was very scared that people were going to smell the alcohol in the, because you know how when somebody was drinking, you can smell it in the room. And I didn't tell anybody about it for years. It just was this thing that happened one night, you know?
And I'm just surprised that you didn't just go back to drinking. Because, like, what
Yeah.
was stopping you?
Well, especially as a comedian, I go on the road and I'm staying at night alone in a hotel. I'm working in a place that serves alcohol. I'm in a hotel that has a mini bar. I usually, when I check into a hotel, I ask them to take the alcohol out of the room. They send somebody
Really?
up and take it out. Yeah.
And do they?
Yeah.
And that helps you.
I mean, all I know is the one time I drank, I was alone in the room with booze, and that's what happened. And that's maybe how tentative it is. It's not like, my sometimes my wife goes away and the kids are away and I'm alone in the house and there is booze in the house. And I think somehow because it's my own house, maybe I feel more comfortable and I feel a little bit more vulnerable when I'm on the road. I feel lonely. I feel sad. I don't like being on the road that much. And so I think that, yeah, I'm more comfortable without having it in the room.
I think that's so great that you know that about yourself and you take those
Yeah,
steps to protect yourself.
yeah, yeah.
It's
I
really
know.
hard. I mean, we live in a society, there's just so much alcohol around, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people. It's not just something we do just to self-medicate. I think that's a
Yeah.
fallacy. It's something we do to celebrate. It's something we do to socialize. It's something we
Hmm.
do, when we wake up in the morning. No, I'm just kidding. But, I mean,
Well, it's
it's there.
something that lets us feel feelings and express love for people. I mean, a lot of people only express love to each other when they're buzzed, and you don't, and you hug your friends and you hold your friend's hand and, you do things that you're afraid to do without, being lubricated.
Right. I'm also curious, just, I don't want to keep you forever in this interview, but uh how old are your kids? They're old, they're in college,
24
right?
and 21.
Okay, so is your older one out of college already?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm so interested as a parent of teenagers. I have two 17-year-olds, and then my older one is 20.
Uh,
How did you deal with the high school years, the drinking years? Like, what did you tell your kids about? Were you sober before you had yeah, you obviously were
oh
already sober
yeah.
before you had
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, my wife never knew me when I was drinking. I don't know that I handled it great. I think we kind of kept them maybe on a little bit of a loose leash in some ways. I think we accepted that, we live in Venice, they're going to a public schools and there's alcohol around. And I think we tried to take the stigma out of it by letting them, once they turn like 16, they could have a glass of wine once in a while. Um, Neither one of them was a drunk in high school. They partied, I think my son more so than my daughter, but I think the issue was more marijuana with both of them. And my daughter stopped completely, and my son still, he has an addiction to this day. And it's something that I don't know how you deal with because kids today, they have vape pens, they have edibles. Every single kid has got it. They're doing it in school, and it's become so normalized that you can't even talk to them about it and say, this is an issue. This is affecting your brain. This is affecting your emotional development. And, you try to tell them to stop and you really just realize like they're going to stop when they're ready to. You keep giving them the information. You keep, you know, offering to support them in stopping or whatever. But, my daughter found it. My son is still, he doesn't think there's anything wrong with it.
Your son is the older one.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I wonder why you think you didn't handle it well. Do you feel like keeping them on a shorter leash would have prevented
I
that? 'Cause
don't
I'm
know.
I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be controlling of them. I feel like if I'm controlling of it, it'll be worse or they won't talk
Yeah.
to me.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know what I would have done better. I really don't. I mean, I think that having a father like I did, I was very vigilant to, their behavior. Um,
Overly
but
vigilant? Do you feel like you pay too much attention
no,
to it?
no, I just think that like um, I don't know. I feel like I think it's just really hard these days. I just don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I think that if you give them motivation for a direction in their life, I think it takes away that. I mean, for me, I quit because I found a direction, I found a passion, and the drinking was getting in the way of that. And I think in the absence of a goal, that stuff can become their whole life.
Um, yeah. How open were you with them about your struggle with alcohol?
Oh, very, very, yeah. And about my grandfather, about their grandfather, who they never met, obviously, and other people in the family, and and friends. We talked about friends that have issues, and so no, I think they're very aware of it, but I think there's this. certain amount of, there's this anti-establishment stance that teenagers all have about, well, good pot is actually good for you in this way, and this way, and because they listen to podcasters talk about, and legalizing pot to me was like, I don't know that that was a great thing. I think it made it more accessible. I think you see a lot of the marketing on billboards and in other ways really towards kids. Um, all these vape pens and stuff, they're easily sold to teenagers. And I think the whole mindset of legalizing it says there's nothing wrong with this, but there really is. And I think, look, do we want prohibition against it? I don't know. I don't know. I just think, when you look at it, alcohol is probably physically worse for you. I think there's more traffic accidents. I think there's more domestic violence. I think there's a lot of reasons why alcohol is worse for you than pot. So do we have prohibition again? I mean, if you're gonna keep booze legal, you kind of have to keep pot legal. But I just saw the effect it had on youth in this country. I mean, if you look at the statistics, there is so much more pot use among teenagers now than there was 5, 10 years ago before it was legal. And I think there's studies about what it does to the prefrontal cortex. It stops developing and it can have long-term effects.
Yeah, and I've also always heard that sort of the younger you start with any of these substances, the more likely it is that you become dependent.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I also started drinking pretty young, 14, and
Yeah.
seemed normal to me, freshman in high school, and I was a young freshman. So, and I definitely think that I was much older. I was already sober when I found out that blacking out because of alcohol is not normal. Like
Yeah.
I just thought that's just what happens. It's chemistry, right? Like you
Right.
put
Right.
alcohol, your brain, like memories erased. I did not
Right.
think anything of it. I was a pretty regular blackout drinker, like where I just
Oh,
would be like,
really?
no clue what happened the night before. Have to piece it
Wow.
together, call a
Jeez.
friend. What did I do? Yeah, and I didn't know
Did
that
your
was
friends
weird.
look after you?
Yeah, I guess so. I felt
Yeah.
like we were all kind of doing that, but I was always
Uh,
surprised when my friends remembered. I don't think I ever did anything crazy when I was
yeah.
drunk. So it wasn't like they were like, "Oh my God, Stefanie, you were dancing on the bar. You took off all your
Uh-huh.
clothes." It wasn't like
Yeah.
that. It was like I was still acting like me. So I don't think
Right.
anybody thought, "Oh God, there's Stefanie blackout drunk again."
Uh-huh.
It's just I
Right.
wouldn't have memories.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
every time I drank, but
Mm.
not that infrequently. I
Right.
have like one more question, which is so you didn't totally change your personality. You just learned to live without alcohol. And I'm so curious because I think you and I have maybe this in common, but how did you deal without having something to like take the edge off when you were working in jobs, like writing jobs? I know you did quite a few like TV writing jobs, producer jobs. How did you deal with stuff like shitty bosses or situations or like workplace stuff or just people telling you what to do and keep your temper under control or not self-sabotage?
Yeah. Well, I didn't always do good. I mean, I was fired a few times from jobs because I had problems with authority. Um, you
Same.
know, I mean, like literally one job, day one, the first day of the job, the head writer said something stupid and I called him on it and he kept me, I mean, it's a 13-week contract, but he tortured me for 13 weeks. And, I think it was like, I learned as I went how to deal with that better. Um, I worked for Ellen DeGeneres and she was a very domineering, controlling, angry person. And
Oh,
I
I'd
had to
never
deal
heard
with
that.
that. Yeah. So I had to deal with that on a daily basis. And I think that was humbling for me, maybe in an unhealthy way. I think I put up with more shit than I should have just to almost prove it to myself that I could. I thought of it as like, you got to man up, you got to be a pro, you got to handle this bad boss. I've had bad bosses before, but this was another level because it was a daily show. And when you have a daily show, you show up with a blank slate in the morning, and by 5 o'clock, you have written produced, cast, costumed, directed, an hour of TV. It's a lot of work, and you got 100 people that are coordinating. So it's a lot of pressure for, 5 days a week.
So what would you do in the evening? How did you unwind? How did you not get fired from that one?
What's funny is the drive to and from work. I would listen to Howard Stern, and I would roll some phone calls on the way home. And it was kind of like an hour where I had kids at the time. So I had an hour before I had to go back into the insanity of having young kids as well. And I think I really decompressed driving. I've always liked to drive, and I needed that time. I don't know what I would have done without that time, but it helped me. And I've always been good about reaching out when I'm stressed, not when I'm sad, but when I'm stressed, I reach out to friends and I talk, and it lets off a lot of steam.
It's almost like you're working a program
I know, and I look,
and you're reading literature.
right. I mean, for your listeners that are program people, they're probably shaking their heads about how many things I do wrong. But I guess your
No.
show is sort of looking at different people's versions of sobriety.
That's what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
judgment. I don't think I do. I am a program person. I do not do it perfectly. And I am
yeah,
not some like big book thumper that
right.
thinks that I have so many friends that I have friends that don't drink because they just decided one day to never do it again and they run marathons and
Yeah,
they different people do it different ways.
yeah. Stand-up comedy has been a huge reason why I don't drink. It's a, it's a burst of energy. It's a burst of mostly good feelings coming in and positive reinforcement and creativity. It's very vulnerable. You make yourself vulnerable every night. And I think that probably that's as much to blame for me staying sober all these years.
You did that show, the Would You Bang Him, right? In Hollywood for Bonnie and Rich.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah.
You were so funny. Oh my God, my stomach hurt laughing at that at the Kookaburra Lounge.
Yeah, right, right, right. I remember
Remember?
shitting on Rich a lot. Yeah,
Ah, you're so
yeah.
funny on stage. Yeah, I'm so
Thank
glad.
you.
I'm glad you quit drinking if it was going to interfere with stand up.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Do you still remember the show that you bombed before you got sober?
Yeah, yeah. It was December 6th, 1989, and it was a show at Nick's Comedy Stop in Boston, and it was raising money for the Children's Hospital, and it was around Christmas time, so they did a stand-up comedy show at noon in this club it was owned by the mob. It was all mob guys running it, and it was all these guys would come in, and they were construction workers from Southie and union guys. It was a very tough blue collar crowd, and so they did a noontime show, and the comedians would go on stage, and then in the audience they had strippers and hookers walking around topless with hats collecting money, and they called the show Tits for Tots. And I went up on stage and I was drunk and I bombed. And I was sitting with a bunch of guys I knew that were from Southie that I played on a hockey team with. And I came back to the table and none of them had looked at me. And I felt like the biggest failure. I was so ashamed. And that was it. That's the last time I drank.
How did you make the connection to you being drunk and not just go, well, these people are a tough crowd
Because
anyway?
because the other comedians were killing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, good for you. I'm so glad you left it behind. I thank you so much for doing this and being vulnerable and telling me your story and thank you. And
Of
where
course.
okay, so tell me all your things, plug all your stuff.
Oh, well, I have a special out on YouTube that's called You Know Me that's got like a 500,000 views now. And we want to build
Wow.
on that. Yeah. And then we got Fitzdog Radio podcast with which I interview guests. I just had Kevin Nealon on last week. I have Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block is on this week. And then Sunday Papers I do with Mike Gibbons, who's my best friend from college. And we go through the Sunday newspaper, entertainment, sports, business, and we do jokes from each section. And
Fun.
then Childish with Allison Rose, where we talk about raising kids.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys do yourself a favor and pick up Look at all of Greg's stuff, listen to all of Greg's stuff. He's really funny and obviously a nice guy. And thank you again.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Life is good, yeah. Life is good.